Hello, John from WPJon here, and today we're going to talk about the difference between posts and pages in WordPress and how to write new posts and pages and what happens to them after you write them. Do they just go out into space? Do they go on your menu automatically? No, they don't. No, you have to tell them what to do. And we're going to go over all that today on WPJon's channel right here, right now. Bloop, bloop.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm John DeBach. I've been building websites for companies and bloggers for over 10 years. Here on WPJon, I teach you everything I know about WordPress and digital marketing so you can create amazing freaking websites that make money, money, money. Okay, if you're new to WordPress, you might be a little bit confused by some of the jargon, what's a post, what's a page, all that kind of stuff. So the truth is, if you want to know the sneaky deaky truth, they're really the same thing. They're both posts technically, but pages are assigned a new thing called a taxonomy that labels them as a page, and they are treated differently on the front end. So a WordPress post is really designed to be a blog post, and once you write it, the blog post gets fed into what's called a blog feed, so that if you have a blog page, it's pulling all your posts. Not your pages, but your posts. Your pages technically are made in the same engine as WordPress that the post engine uses, but they're not pulled into your blog feed. So posts are part of your blog feed, pages are not, but they're really designed and used the same way. Let's jump into the computer and see where the menu is on both of those, how to add new ones, and how to kind of craft things for your pages and posts. So here we are on the dashboard for my test website. This is test.wpjon.com. This is obviously going to be changing quite a bit over time, so it might not look exactly this way when you watch this video. I apologize, but you'll be able to see kind of my ongoing sandbox of play fun that I do on this site. So right now, if you look under the pages post, which is right over here, the pages category, this is where all your pages are, whereas your posts are under your posts page. So there's a little difference between your posts and your pages in terms of where they're stored. But if you look, I'm going to open posts in a new tab real quick. And if you see that they look almost identical, there's just a list of them and that's it. Now, if we were to view them on the website, you'll see that one of them has a title and then a empty space because we have added 0 content to it at this point. And then a page, if we look at a test page, we'll open this in a new tab. You'll see it's the same thing. The only big difference is by default, pages don't have comments, but you actually can turn them on for pages and you can turn them off for posts, which would make them identical. See where I'm going with this? You see? So it's a small difference, but it is worth pointing out. So on your post page and on your test page, the way you add a new one is actually very simple. You just go under whichever one you want to add, and you just you click on the Add New button. You can also click the big new kind of thing in the top bar right there. So for posts or pages, you can either click on the Add New, or you can click on the New button in the top of the top bar of your WordPress site. So I'm going to add a new page and kind of walk you through the things that I do, or at least the basics of how to add a new page, and it's pretty simple. So under the new page, if you click Add New, the first thing you're going to want to do is click Add a Title. So we're going to call this, let's call this your services page. Let's pretend this is your services page. Now, because I'm using the Divi theme builder, it's asking me if I want to use the default editor or the Divi builder. Divi is designed to kind of take over this back-end process of designing your web pages specifically. Some people use it for posts, but it's really more of a page builder. So if you wanted to build this in Divi, much like you did with your home page, and if you haven't seen that video, you can watch my How to Build an Amazing Homepage with Divi video as well. But if you wanted to use the default editor, you just click on this gray default editor. So I'm going to click the default editor, and here we are. We can start writing right away. So maybe we start writing some content in here, and then we say, hey, you know what? I have a list of things that would be useful for someone. So we hit enter, and when we hit enter, by default, it's going to add another paragraph. But you can click on this little plus icon that they have, and it will give you options on different blocks that you can add to your WordPress site. Now, this is exclusive to the Gutenberg editor. It's the new style of making WordPress posts that WordPress released sometime I think about a year ago now, so sometime 2018, 2019, and it's a different, more visual attempt at trying to make WordPress a bit of a friendlier builder. Some people like it. I personally like the old way of creating posts, which I'll show you in a moment. But here you have the different options of what this next content block element would be. So let's say we wanted to do a list. We click on list, and then we have this little mini bar over here where we can choose if it's going to be a ordered list or an unordered list. Ordered list means numbered. Unordered means just bulleted. So let's pretend it's a bulleted list for now, and we're going to say list item 1, and then when we hit enter, it's going to add another list item, so item 2, etc., etc., item 3. And then just to be funny, I'm going to do item 7. Don't tell anybody. And then once all that's done, we hit publish. Now, the way you add a post or a page and make it actually officially launched in your WordPress dashboard is hitting that blue publish button. If you don't hit that, it is not going to be live on your site. So you can always save it as a draft if you wanted to like write a little bit and come back to it, or you can publish it right away. The way you were to save to draft is by clicking Save Draft, which is over here. Right there, Save Draft. Pretty simple, right? But we're going to go and click on the Publish one. Now, I will say there's one other thing I want to point out with posts and pages. You can actually write these and have them fully finished, and you can set them to publish in the future. This is really, really handy and kind of a crucial part of running a blog. You're not going to get up there and get up every morning and write a blog fervently to make your deadline. You're probably going to have 1 or 2 in the backlog at least. I know some people like myself, sometimes I'll have as much as 3 months of content that's pre-written and ready to go, and it's just scheduled to release on autopilot. And the way you do that is with the scheduling tool. So if you look over here in the right hand side of your page, you'll see this thing that says publish immediately. If you click on that, you can change that to a date in the future, AM, PM, any date you'd like. So I can set that to also publish in the past, which isn't very useful, but hypothetically speaking, if you want to make it look like you wrote this post 3 months ago, you could. So you can say I wrote this on December 1st instead of December 16th, which is the day I'm recording this video. So right there, you can set the date and then hit publish. Now, because I'm publishing in the past, it's going to appear live on the website just with a different date. So now that it's there, I can click on the services title, and you'll see that you have this permalink, which is your permanent link for that specific blog post. It's permanent, and it doesn't change ever until you change it. So no matter how many posts you write, if it's going on your homepage or your blog page, that link will be your permanent post for that specific piece of content forever until you personally change it. That's why it's called a permalink. So once you click on that permalink, if you click on it from here, it'll open it in a new tab so you can take a look at it. And as we would expect, we have the garbage text I wrote and list item 2, 3, and 7. Out of order there. And that's the post. And you can do the same thing for writing pages. Now, I do want to take a second and install the classic editor because I want to show you that it is another way to add content to your site, and a lot of people, including myself, still prefer it. Now, I should say I don't know how long it's going to be available. My feeling is that it has a lot of people using it, millions and millions of people using it, so I don't think that it's going to go out of fashion anytime soon. But I'm going to install it real quick, and we'll go over in another video, if you're not familiar with plugins, how to install it. But I'm just going to install it quickly as I'm talking to you so that I can show you the differences between the classic editor and the new editor, which is called the Gutenberg editor. So now that I have the classic editor installed, if I go back to that post, and the way you go to edit it is you can either go to that post panel, like I showed you before, but if you're on the front end of your site, you'll notice that there is a black bar up at the top. So if you go to the black bar up at the top, you can see this big edit page button right on the front end of your site. If I click on that, it will take me into the back end of the site, and you'll see that the page style has changed pretty drastically. So here's the title, where that big title was. Here's the permalink, it's always available to see. And then here's the classic editor editing area. So instead of editing it in blocks, it's kind of treated all as one piece of content. So if I wanted to add another paragraph, I just hit enter. And because it's a list, I have to hit enter twice and I can start typing. If I wanted to add a list, I can actually turn a couple lines of this type by highlighting it into a list by just clicking on bulleted list. It's just a stylistic preference of which one you prefer. I think because millions of people are still using the classic editor that they're not going to get rid of it anytime soon, but they might. You never know. WordPress is its own entity, its own nonprofit, and they might just phase it out over time. So, but for now, I think we're probably safe for at least another year or two. And that's pretty much it. Now, when you're publishing a page, it's not as relevant to have categories, but on a post it is. So let me show you what that looks like on a post. On your posts, we're going to, oh, you'll notice I'm getting a warning that says, hey, you didn't save any changes you made because I added new content. And if I leave, it won't be saved. Important note. If you want to save your changes to a post and you edit it, you have to hit the blue update button. The publish button turns into an update button as soon as it is published. And you might see it also be called a schedule button. So if you change your date to something in the future, so let's say we publish it in the future, let's make it just 2020 for the same date and hit OK. You'll see that that blue button now turns into a schedule button just to make sure you realize, hey, that hasn't happened yet. You're scheduling the post, you're not publishing it. So those are the three things that those blue button might actually turn into. It'll either be schedule, publish, or update. But let's go back to the posts and see the difference on the back end, and then we'll go into how it happens on the front end, or what goes on with them on the front end. So your test post, which I have no content in here for, so I'll just add some little text here, and we'll add maybe a list. Call this an ordered list this time. And while I'm here, before I get to the categories, I want to show you how adding photos and video work in WordPress. It's pretty simple. You have this Add Media button, and once you click on it, you'll be able to add photos and video into this section. So once you can click Upload Files and select one from your desktop, and then once you do, you select the files, and then once you do select the files from your desktop, they will upload and end up being in your media library that you can use. So if you click on one, you can insert it into the post, and there it goes right into the post. You have some options in terms of the styling, and that is you can have it float, what's called left, right, no float, or center. So centering just means centering it on the page. Floating left and right means having the content or the photo or video on the left, while the text, instead of being above and below it, floats over so it's alongside it. So if you float your image left, your content, your writing or other content will be on the right, and vice versa. If you float your image to the right, your other stuff will be on the left. That's what the default is no float. So it's just text or whatever, photo, nothing next to it, and then stuff on the bottom below it. But you could see if I take this and move it to the left, and then, if I paste this on top of this stuff and float it to the left, everything below it suddenly goes to the right. So that's just a quick little tutorial on, or a quick little insight on how image works in WordPress. And then you can add categories. This becomes really important if you run a blog with lots of posts. So in your categories section here, you can add a new category and call this one, perhaps, let's say you have a blog about business coaching like we're creating here. So this one could be productivity tools. Because a lot of times business coaches talk about productivity, saving time. So that could be one category. And then when you hit add new category, it gets added. You can also, if you click add a new category again, you can add a second one. So let's say this one is on marketing. So a lot of business coaches talk about effective marketing. And then when we click add, you'll see it's in those sections. And let's say I only wanted to be in productivity and not marketing. I could just uncheck that and uncheck uncategorized. And then when I update the post, it will appear only in the productivity category. Of course, you have to set up when and how those appear, which we can go over again in another video when we talk about blog feeds. But for now, it's important to know that you can categorize your posts that way. You can also edit your categories from another section. It's pretty self-explanatory, so I won't go over it, but it's right here in the categories panel of your post. It's just going to list all your categories, not with your posts. And finally, if you want to make edits to your posts in bulk or your pages, it's important to know how to do that. And the way you would do that, I'm going to go, we'll do it under pages quickly because I have a few pages. You can check box the ones you want to affect, and then you can, under bulk actions over here, if you click on bulk actions, you'll see edit, and then you can hit apply. And you can change a few things. So you can allow comments or not allow comments universally for all the ones that are checked. You can change the status to draft, which will unpublish anything that is published and put it as a draft for you to publish later. Same thing with a bunch of pages that you might have as drafts and suddenly want to publish all of them at once. Instead of logging into each page individually, you can publish them all at once. And then you can change the parent and the author. Not really relevant for this video, but if you go under posts, you'll see that you have, even though I only have one post, if I check on it, the bulk actions are still there, so the menu won't change. But right here, if I click edit and apply, you'll see as a post, you have the option to change the categories. So if you forgot to label certain posts under a certain category, you can then click all of them in your post dashboard, hit bulk edit, and then you'll be able to change the category that way. So that's a very useful thing to do. Bulk editing posts is actually something you'd be surprised how often you use. You might need to suddenly take certain posts down or you know, change categories all at once or something like that. So it is very handy to know where that is. Now on the blog side of things, on how it works, what I'm going to do real quick is add a new page, and I'm going to call it a blog, and then just hit publish. I'm not going to add any content to it. I'm just going to publish it, and then I'm going to go back over to my appearance, or excuse me, my settings. Where is it? It's over here. And under settings, I'm going to go to the reading tab and tell WordPress that my post page is a blog. Now, there are different ways to do this in WordPress, especially with the Divi theme, but this is the most basic way to do it. So now if I go to my pages and I search for the blog, if I view that live on the site, you'll see that on the blog page, the post shows up. And if I were to add another post, so let's add a new one real quick. Very easy and very quick to do from the front end. And if you have a fast, internet connection, this could be super lightning fast. Mine's a little bit slow today. It gets a little weird with the weather. So let's call this test post 2. And we'll add a little bit of content here. You know what? Let's add a lot of content. So we'll just do this a bunch of times so that it's a nice long post, because it's important to see how it actually truncates that post. I'm not even going to tag it with a category, which is why they have that uncategorized category, so that if you forget, it at least has something to go with. But now if we go to the blog page back on the site, which was just the URL plus the /blog, you'll see that I have 2 posts. I have the test post and test post number 2. Now, because there's no break in the letters, it views it all as one line. So that was my bad. But because I wanted to show you guys how this gets broken up. So I'm going to edit this post real quick. But you'll see how it only shows a little bit of the post. That's called an excerpt. And so what typically, the way this works is if you have a blog roll, you're going to have a blog page with all your posts lined up. And if someone wants to read one of them, they'll click on the title of the post in order to read it. So under your edit post, I'm just going to add some spaces in here so that we can actually see how this works. Hopefully I have enough so you could see. My bad on not making this many words. WordPress is like, that's the longest word in the history of the English language. I can't handle that. So that's what happened. Now if we go back to blog and refresh the page, you'll see that it shows an excerpt. Not the whole post, again, but just a little bit to give someone a taste before they decide if they want to read it, which is kind of standard blog platform. So that's the difference between a blog, a post, and a page, and how to add them. Again, play around with the Gutenberg editor versus the classic editor. They're both fantastic. WordPress is fantastic at doing that. If you wanted to use the Divi builder for a page, I don't recommend using it for posts, but if you want to use it for a page, then when you get that little icon when you're starting your page to use the Divi builder and you click it, it will start the Divi Builder for you just like you did with your home page. I hope that was helpful in terms of distinguishing the difference between posts and pages. It's important to note that there are different taxonomies that you can add. So there are plugins that add another post type. So a page is really technically classified as a post type in WordPress. But let's say you bought a portfolio plugin. It might add another post type called a portfolio piece, or it might say portfolio, or it might be a directory plugin and it might add a post type called a contact. These are all post types, but changing the taxonomy of it from a post to something else allows WordPress to manipulate them in different ways and allows you as a WordPress developer, which is what you're becoming, to use them in different ways throughout your site. So post pages, as you can see, they're really very similar in terms of how you edit them, but they're kind of put into different buckets on the WordPress backend so that you can call them in different ways. Whew. This was a lot more technical than I thought it would be. I thought I'd just be like, posts are posts and pages are pages and that's it. But, you know, there's just a lot to go over. I mean, how to do the categories and stuff. So hopefully I didn't lose you. Hopefully this was helpful to you. Be sure to check out my other videos for even more in-depth training on WordPress. And if you have any questions, be sure to leave it in the comment box. And if all this stuff is too complicated for you, time for a shameless plug. Hire me. I'm John. I'm a WordPress developer. I can create beautiful websites for you. Check out some of my work at WPJon.com and exactly what I do, and I'll walk you through all the services you can hire me for between consulting or developing the WordPress site for you. But of course, until you decide that that's appropriate for you, I have tons of free content on my site and tons of free tutorials for you to learn how to do it all yourself. Thanks so much for watching.